Okay, so now that we've discussed the test preparations and what your priorities should be for that, let's start talking about the application documents themselves. And these are the documents that all MBA programs are going to require in the application.
Yeah.
These documents are the application essay, the letters of recommendation, and the resume. Now, as a starting point, I suggest that we begin with the resume.
Yeah.
That's usually the document that we begin with, and it's usually the document that gets finished last, because all the way up to and including the week before you send your application, you may be adding additional experience or qualifications to that resume.
Yeah.
But it's a good basis from which to build the other documents as well. So do you have a copy of your resume, of your current resume?
Yes, I have a copy here. So.
Ah, terrific. Okay. Outstanding. So let me have a look here. Okay, Ms. Mikami, so looking at your resume, my first impression is that, this is a good start. You've got all the right categories here: contact information, your educational or academic background, your work or professional experience, and in addition to that, extra qualifications. But there's a lot of information, a lot of really valuable information in your background that is missing from this resume. We're going to need not only your name, but also your address, your mailing address, your phone number, and your email address. Okay, so that is all included in your contact information. Next, your educational background. So you've got the university name and your beginning and ending dates, which is great, but we're going to need to know some really important information here, namely, what degree did you earn at Shinshu, and what was your major? In our first meeting, you had mentioned that you majored in economics, and that's a really crucial piece of information to include here. Also, although you don't have to include a description of Shinshu University, it's a good idea to identify the location of this university. So go ahead and add the city, the prefecture, and the country that this university is located in. Moving on to your work experience, my first piece of advice is to describe, in a sentence or a few well-chosen phrases, exactly what kind of company Kyohako Kirin is. As I said earlier, this might be a recognizable company in Japan, in your home country, but admissions committees may not recognize the name of the company. So just briefly describe what kind of company Kyohako Kirin is. An additional piece of extremely important information which seems to be missing here is what you were doing during your first year of work at this company. Here you have listed that you've worked at Kyohako Kirin from April 2007 until the present day, and you have information about your work at the Sapporo office from April 2008. But what's missing is any kind of information about what you did at the company during your first year of work there. What did you do between April of 2007 and April of 2008? Now, I know from an earlier conversation with you that you were located in Tokyo at the headquarters office, for training and other purposes. So we're going to need information about that in order to make this work experience category complete. In addition, as I said earlier, you're going to want to list duties and accomplishments at greater length than you've listed them here. So here, you have one piece of information: you're responsible for selling prescription medication to doctors at Sapporo area hospitals and clinics. Okay, well that's a good beginning, but we need some additional information here. Were you in charge of researching particular hospitals or particular doctors? Did you work with any other team members in networking with these hospitals or these doctors? Were you given specific assignments by supervisors or bosses to spearhead particular sales campaigns or marketing strategies? All of that kind of information could be very useful. And when reporting on this information, when possible, you'll want to use active and dynamic verbs and phrases rather than passive verbs and phrases. So, for example, rather than using this phrase, responsible for selling prescription medication, you might say instead something like coordinated the sales of prescription medication. That might seem like a subtle difference, but by making your verb use more active, more dynamic, it makes you sound like a more confident and a more powerful applicant. This is a great list of qualifications, and some of these are specifically business related, which is terrific. But in a couple of cases here, I would give a little bit more description about what exactly these qualifications are. In addition, you want to list the dates that you achieved these qualifications. Okay? So when did you get this TOEIC score? When did you become an Oracle Silver Fellow? When did you get the second degree of this official business skill test in bookkeeping? And what exactly does that mean? All right, we need a little bit more information about each of these qualifications. Okay, finally, let's talk about your extracurricular involvement. Now, you've mentioned under your qualifications here that you did some hiking in a university climbing club. Well, give us a bit more information about that. I mean, were you simply a member of that club? Were you the president of the club? Were you an assistant leader? Did you lead any hikes? That kind of information could be useful. In addition, you had mentioned in our first conversation that you did a homestay experience in the UK when you were a high school student. Okay, well that's great because it showed that you've studied abroad and that you have some international experience, and that's going to be a useful point to bring up in your resume. It shows a certain international background and the fact that you've been a student in an English-speaking classroom before. Okay, so in addition to that, think about any extracurricular activities that you've been involved in, whether it's additional university clubs or organizations, any kind of volunteer experience that you've done, any internships you've done, even if it's just a seasonal internship during the summer or in addition to the classes that you took at university. All of that information will point out what a well-rounded person you are. So you're not just a student, you're not just an employee of Kiwahako Kirin, you have other things going on in your life. And admissions committees are very interested in what kind of person you are, in addition to your educational and your professional background. Okay? Let me make some comments about formatting. Now, you want your resume to stand out from the resumes of other applicants. You want it to look visually attractive, you want it to look dynamic, you want it to look appealing. So, of course, the information, the content in the resume is the most important thing. But if you present that information in a really visually appealing way, it will be much more effective. It will grab the eye of the admissions committee members. And that can be the difference between a resume that gets a second look versus a resume that is looked at once and then put in the discard pile. Okay, so does what I said make sense?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, great. I think that if we follow these points and if we focus on these particular issues, we can really make this document as close to ideal as possible. We want to have a resume that really showcases your strengths, your talents, your experience, your qualifications. All of this information is good, but let's make this look even better, more polished, more professional.
Okay,
All
great.
right?